You are listening to the Horse Radio Network, part of the Equine Network family.
This is episode 714 of the Dressage Radio Show, official podcast of the United States Dressage Federation on the Horse Radio Network, brought to you by Kentucky Performance Products. On today's show, we're going to get advice on marketing and selling your horse with experts on the subject, Lindsey O'Keefe and Julie Channell. We've got a wonderful amateur spotlight for you today and a fantastic trainer tip with Patty Mayer.
This is Reese Goffler-Stanfield from Georgetown, Kentucky.
And this is Philip Parks from Rockwood, Ontario, and you're listening to the Dressage Radio Show.
Well, hi, Phil. How are you?
I'm doing really well, Reese. Yeah, I mean, it's been a great couple of weeks. You know, we had that little bit of time off, and now we're ready to prepare for our show season. You know, lots of great tips.
Yeah, we've got an awesome show. I have to tell everybody, I sound terrible. I've been actually really sick. I think I had the flu. I did not have COVID, but I had something also very, very bad. So I sound terrible. So excuse me. But Phil, you have had an amazing week. You just came from the clinic with Christoph Hess. You're so jazzed and excited. And so I can't wait to have you talk, because I sound awful, but to hear all about it, because it was really amazing. So tell us about it.
I mean, it was really an honor to be selected and to be participating in, in this clinic with one of the highest level judges ever, who is no longer judging, but now is involved in doing clinics and training riders and horses. And so, that's to our benefit, I think. He normally does some stuff in Florida too. I'm sure you've seen him, Reese, and
he's wondermal.
He's just wonderful. He's just, really classical dressage, German trained. I mean, he trains Germans now, in educating about horses and all of these things. So I was, really excited, and we had wonderful weather. So, what better, what better than that? It's been around 20 degrees, which is kind of perfect for horse riding and just working on things. And, it was really awesome, and I wanted to just maybe hit on some highlights from.
Yes, please. There are some beautiful pictures of you riding online. So you looked awesome. So tell us more about the clinic.
So this clinic was organized by Top Line Events, who I have to give a shout out to, obviously, but they did a wonderful job, and it was held at Ancaster Fairgrounds, which I've never been to before. I've been aware of this site, and the organization, the grounds were amazing. It was held indoors, which was a good idea for this time of year, but even though we didn't need it, they did a wonderful job, and lots of sponsors, lots of great stuff. So I'm going to try and get some photos on my Facebook page and all of that promotional stuff, which I'm not great at, but I'm working on it.
Well, there's one picture of you riding. It's a beautiful picture, and you're actually riding one-handed. Can you tell us about that one? Because that one I want to put up on our page because it was so good.
Okay. All right. Well, this picture will go up in the show notes, I suppose. And yes. I knew from reading Christoph Hess's book, and we had him on the show here 2 years ago, something like that, promoting his book and stuff like that, which was fantastic, but a good preparation for all the riders, because he's starts from the very basic and a good way to check on your balance and whatever. A good tip for any rider out there is to try to ride one-handed, which was great, but in preparation I should have actually put the horse in a snaffle, because it would have been a lot easier to kind of figure out my rein lengths and all that, because sure. I was riding in the double, and he just said, "Okay, Phil, reins in one hand and off we go." And then we rode for almost the whole lesson in one-handed, which was
that's pretty baller. Good for you. That's awesome.
I mean, to say that I was out of my comfort zone is not an understatement. the whole situation kind of had me really in my own head, kind of nervous. This is a little bit of a spooky horse. He doesn't handle environments super, horse show and like any of it super well. So I've, kind of had some trust issues with him, and I didn't know how he would handle the clinic thing, which, they had all the tables set up around the dressage.
Kind of VIP style tables
right.
around
There's
the ring.
Yeah, lots of VIP, big environment. And then I just, I did a little, did some leg yielding warm up. That was big from Christoph, is like, you have to be able to get the horse to the outside rein and secure that kind of connection before you're going to do anything else. So we did that in walk and then in trot. He's big on leg yielding. I think it's a fantastic exercise for suppling the horse and just getting their attention, so.
Yep. 100%.
I had been practicing that all week or 2 weeks prior. And then, so I moved from leg yield into the shoulder in, and that was pretty secure. So that helped me out a lot to get his attention and get him more or less relaxed. And then onto the 20-meter circle and reins in one hand. So, just put all 4 reins in my outside hand.
Woo.
Yes, that was challenging for me, and
good for you.
In a lot of ways, it's it's good to do these clinics and to try to inspire other people to be brave. And there was a real mix of professionals and amateurs in this particular clinic. So I think that was good on by the organizers to try to show a little bit of everything, because one of the big complaints of previous clinics being held in our area and by different groups is that they always choose the professional riders and super nice horses, and there's never any real problems to fix. So I was a little bit inspired by those complaints and say, okay, well, I'm just gonna this horse is for sure not perfect, and I'm not perfect, so let's just challenge ourselves, which.
Good for you.
The day before
it's tough sometimes.
The day before I was like, almost regretting it. Like, oh, what happens if
what did I do?
This or that happens, and then just picturing a lot of disaster or just kind of running out of the ring, like all these issues that can happen and whatever. But so I was.
But he didn't, and he was good, right? I mean, it was. Good
he was amazing. Yeah, the horse didn't. Put a foot wrong. He didn't make me look bad, make the breeder, the owner look bad, or any of it. It was an amazing experience, and Christoph, great coach and real positive. Nothing bad to say about any of the riders. Which like he helped everyone. Yeah. Like from like there's a 15-year-old kid riding a school horse or like almost awesome. A pony and. I mean, he gave the same amount of attention, and the details were there, and the explanations were there. I mean, it was just a fantastic experience for, I think, everybody involved. And maybe the spectators won't criticize having perfect horses. And I mean, I've seen that situation, and I get that criticism of different clinics being held or educational events being held, and I
think it's always an interesting, because we say that too a lot of times when we're go to clinics and you're like, well, gosh, I don't see this on a daily basis. Sometimes it's amazing to be inspired, and it really does depend on what the clinic organizers are trying or the clinician wants, right? Is what's the best way to kind of get to what they're trying to impart to the audience, which I think is really important. And I think it is one of those things where it also depends on who signs up and who wants to come, because, for those big clinics, you are putting yourself out there 100%. And that's scary, even for professional riders. And you and I, literally, this job, we put ourselves out there every week. Like, we're fairly used to doing that. But it's tough to go out there. And especially, it's one thing to go out with a pretty trusty soldier, but to put yourself out there is tricky. So I think a lot of people do make comments where they'll say things like, oh, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, hold on a second. sometimes it depends on what the clinician wants. And then sometimes it just depends on kind of the whole scenario. So I'm so glad you got to ride. And I think also knowing the clinician, Christoph Hess is a true horseman. He is, if you ever get a chance to see him in person, he's lovely. We've worked with him here on the podcast. You've read his books. Like he's a true teacher, which I think is really amazing. So very, very thankful for that.
Yeah, I mean, he started out the 2 days with talking about the social license to work with horses and how it's every single person's responsibility to make sure that we're riding horses and not forcing them like slaves to do their job. That was a bit of a theme of his talk, and I was just, thought of bringing it back to Cassie. Like last week on the show.
Yes, Cassandra Hummer Johnson. She went to the FEI
forum, where that was a big topic, and I think it should be front of everyone's mind that if somebody walks into a clinic or a horse show or whatever it is, they expect to see happy horses. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to to keep doing what we love, and how do we work with horses but also keep them happy. In their work. And, so there was a lot of discussion about that and encouragement about that's all of our responsibility to make happy horses.
Right. Well, I love it. Well, Phil, thanks for sharing the whole clinic with us. And I think we have a great show. So we're going to jump right into our show, and we hope you enjoy.
Vitamin E is a powerful antioxidant that supports healthy muscle and nerve function by limiting cellular damage. Green grass is the best source of vitamin E for horses, but most horses don't spend enough time grazing to meet their needs. Hay, grain, and winter pasture provide little to no natural vitamin E. To ensure your horse's vitamin E requirements are met, choose Elevate. Elevate contains a readily available source of natural vitamin E. Elevate is cost-effective and easy to feed. To learn more about Elevate, visit the Kentucky Performance Products website at kppusa.com.
Well, tonight we're very excited to have Lindsey O'Keefe and Julie Channell, both FEI rider and trainers, on the line. Lindsey, I'm going to start with you. Welcome to the show, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, hello. Thank you for having me. I actually just recently in the last year moved to the Wellington area, and I'm a USDF bronze, silver, and gold medalist since I was actually 15. It's pretty crazy. It's my one claim to fame. And just enjoying the nice weather from Seattle to Wellington, and starting my business down here has been exciting. So thanks for having me.
And Lindsey, we did Young Riders together, right? Or is it my sister?
Actually, my older sister did Young Riders with you, and then Lindsey, your younger sister, did Young Riders with me. So and I medaled when I went to Young Riders as well. So I think we were on the podium together the one year. So
I love that. That's very cool. And we're also very excited to have Julie Channell. She is Canadian, and we are excited to have you on the show. Julie, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, thank you for having me. It's pretty exciting to be doing my first podcast, I have to admit.
Yay!
Yeah. So I've been living in Wellington for over 7 years now. I moved from the Maple Leaf, as you mentioned earlier, and I can't complain about the weather and the horses here. It's just out of this world. And I've been doing horses my whole entire life, basically, as far as I can remember. Competed multiple times through FEI levels, doing, the young rider stuff and all of that. And I've just recently actually decided to go out on my own and promote myself as a trainer. And I just kind of started doing that like last month. So I'm pretty excited for the future.
I love it. I love it. Well, what we wanted to bring you ladies on to the show is to talk about how to market your horse if you're selling your horse, how to make a good video, kind of the nuts and bolts of doing that, because you ladies are experts in that. And so, Lindsey, how about I start with you? Can you tell us a little bit about, okay, you've decided that you want to put your horse on the market. Tell us some of the first steps that we should take just from the very beginning. How do you do it? What do you do? What are some of the starting places?
Well, for me, if I were the trainer of this horse, or if it was just an adult amateur listing her horse or his horse on their own, I would actually seek a professional to get help just because they're usually really experienced in this field, and they can kind of steer you through maybe obstacles you wouldn't think of. Primarily for me is to make sure you have a sound horse, not only mind, but body. Is it safe? Will it be able to pass a veterinary exam? And also just make sure that what are your reasons for selling it? Those are the first three things that I am always prompted by people that are coming to look at horses, are wanting to know those three things.
Okay. Now, would you advise to maybe get a vet out, to do a pre-purchase before you put the horse on the market, just to know what's going on with the horse, or have a veterinarian opinion? Yeah.
Yeah, the level of horses that I personally deal with, and I know Julie does as well, because we work together on sales, is we would like that. It really, for me, when horses they have a pre-vet check, there's no surprises for the buyer. And actually, a lot of people are flying to look at these horses. So it kind of gives their vet an inside view on before you even get on the horse. So you can either, obviously you're going to do a physical exam. And then on top of that, you're going to do radiographs or films. I always tell my clients this is something to reassure the buyer that you are basically giving them insurance that this horse has been physically looked at by another vet. And if there are findings, it's no surprise to this buyer, and they can kind of see up front, they can live with the issues that the vet found.
Excellent. And Julie, tell us, okay, so now you've had your vet check, you've had your sort of pre-check, you've decided to sell your horse for whatever reason. Okay, now we're talking videos and pictures. So talk to us a little bit about how you start with that.
Well, I'm going to double down a little bit on what Lindsey said. I think if you are an amateur and you've never really dealt with the sale of an animal, I think I would highly also recommend to have a professional help you with the whole thing, because it is a bigger task than it sounds like. For the video, I think I always look for details as though first looks, right? So your first impression, you want to make a good first impression with your video. I think great quality photos are always a bonus. You want to look for pictures that make the horse look good, that, the leg postures are good, the neck looks good, the horse is uphill, and it's all, it makes the horse as good as it can be. And then for videos, I think it's always important, to have good quality video. You don't want something that's going to be lagging or that has pixels in it. For me, I always look for videos that go straight to the point. I don't want a 12-minute video of your third level horse. It's not necessary. And I think, you're going to be looking for the horse to always be coming towards you or to be on the side. So things like your horse going away from you, and you're not putting your horse's best foot forward by presenting him like that. And then, of course, on top of that, white wrap, braids are always a bonus. You want your horse to look like he's going to a 5-star dinner. You want to attract people. You want to make him look the best that he can be.
Okay, well that makes sense. So, and how much editing should do you guys personally do? I see a lot of slow motion video. I personally hate that. That kind of thing.
I hate it. Yeah.
Yes, I do not like slow motion. I would not recommend. I think it's a waste of time. People do not need to be seeing all the little finer movements. A nice bold extension in the normal video, I think, is perfectly fine. And as far as the editing goes, I like to, like I said earlier, just go straight to the point. So if you're going to show half pass, you start from, let's say you're going corner to the other side of the arena. Well, you're going to show the horse coming around the corner, then executing the half pass, and then leaving a couple strides afterwards to really show that the entirety of the movement.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, that's good to know.
Julie and I have done a lot of sale videos together, and make sure that you are doing a third level sale video, then you're going to do the half pass from the center line to to the rail, not from the corner. I mean, you want to do things that kind of match the horse's scale of training. Don't try to show your horse doing more than he's capable of doing. If you're advertising in the third level, he does not need to do a Grand Prix half pass. And I'm the same with Julie. Like when I look at a video, I don't want to see your warm up and longing and lowing and doing all this. Like go right to the point of, okay, Julie and I like to do one long side of the trot, one long side of the canter to start the video. And then it kind of like wakes up your viewer. And then if they're third level per se, that's where we're at right now. Then we do like the half pass from the central line, and I'm videoing from the front of the horse. So you can see the articulation, you can see the bend, you can see the crossing over. And then you show them this going straight on the line, a couple of strides. So you can see how this horse transitions from movement to straightness. And I know that we do the extensions towards the camera on the short side. These are things that you kind of want to showcase. And again, like start in the middle of the long or short side to do that, just so you have like a clear view. So your video should not be longer than, I would say 3 minutes is max. And I would say a minute per gate. And then the walk is about 15, 20 seconds. And Grand Prix horses and stuff, of course, that's a little different. But the generalized sale video should really not be longer than 3 minutes. I mean, I'm asleep by then. So
yeah, exactly.
No, it's true. It's just a snapshot, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. You want to leave them wanting more. You want them to come out, to see your horse.
I think that like when you are editing as a seller, your videos, try to start, like if your horse has an amazing extended trot, open up your video with that. Like show your best qualities like right away. Or if the horse has an incredible like extended canter, like you open up with that. You want to pique the buyer's interest as much as possible from the get-go.
Showcase them. Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
Sorry, I was just going to say, if your horse has an amazing walk, should you start with that? I mean, it's a bit boring, but
okay, maybe not the walk. I would definitely either go to trot. I always keep the walk to the end. It's a very important part, but like it's not something that's gonna go like wow for most people. So I always either do like a trot extension to begin with or a canter extension, and then you start throwing your movements in there and stuff like that.
I mean, you guys, it's been a really long time. Actually, I never dated online, but I'm assuming this is what happens when you date. You're trying to get your best qualities out there quickly, right? You're trying to just present yourself in a really, you want to present you, but you want to present the best stuff about you. Again, it's been a long, I never really did that. But anyways, it's the same concept, right? And it's just getting that concept out there of, okay, this is what we want to show the best about this horse. And so what do you guys think about doing a test? I mean, have you ever do you recommend that? Do you send tests out if you have them? What's your thoughts on that?
I sent tests out in the horses. Have you, Julie?
I mean, I have, but I normally only really send them if they request them. I think you have a bit of a better advantage when you control what you send to your viewers. Because like you were saying, it's like online dating, right? Like if someone wants to show that a horse has been to a show, I have no problem sending that video over. But personally, I think if I have the chance of putting my horse's best foot forward first and saying like, look, this is a highlight of all of his best qualities, that's what I'm going to send to people first to really catch their attention.
Yeah, that makes sense. And okay, I need a poll. Lindsey, I'll let you answer first. To braid or not to braid?
For me, it depends on the horse's top line.
Okay.
There's some horses that have, I always say, just going back a little bit to confirmation in photos and stuff, when I have a horse and I look at him and my eye doesn't stop at all and I look at their top line and go, ugh, or something sticks out at me. If you have such a really good top line horse and you feel like the braids are going to make them look better, then I do it. If I have a horse that has a weak top line or maybe doesn't have, or let's talk price range, a horse that maybe is not in the higher price range, It really depends on the horse. It's just like someone getting a haircut. It's the same thing. Does this haircut look better on this person or not? It's the same with the horses with me. I have some horses I have in my barn that I look at and I think they look more attractive with braids in. And I have some that I'm like, they got such a beautiful top line or they look good enough without the braids. I've done it both ways in my program. It just really depends on the horse. Do they have a long mane? If they have a long mane, do you do a running braid? Yes. Do you long braids? Yes. You don't leave the long mane like a Frisian or Andalusian just flapping in the wing because it kind of distracts from the framing of the horse. But I have done both. It depends really on the horse. And then a lot of it's just preference on what kind of buyer I'm presenting it to as well. But manes need to be pulled if they're not braided and in a professional way. They don't look like someone just hacked them with scissors.
Yeah.
But again, just going back to that same thought of just presenting your horse in the best light possible. I always compare it to a little bit to not dating, but like to your cars. Your cars, it's pride of ownership. You want to detail your horse per se.
And Julie, what are your thoughts on that?
I kind of in the same line as Lindsey, and I think also it kind of depends on the horse, in the sense that I feel if you're going to be doing a video for a horse that is like schooling all the Grand Prix and has a really big price tag, it takes you 20 minutes to throw braids in. I think you're expecting these people to spend a ton of money on this animal, throw some braids in there. But if you're trying to sell, a lower level horse or a little bit younger, or I think it's okay to not have braids in there. I don't think it's necessarily a big no, but I think there's a time and place where braids should be put in there.
Got it. And what about photos? So let's transition to what are you looking for when you do photos? Julie, do you want to take that one? And then Lindsey, you can jump on as well.
Sure. So like I said a little bit earlier, I think it's really important to have good quality pictures of your animals. I mean, professional shots are the best. I'm not saying they're required, but again, it's a little bit like who's your market, right? Are you trying to sell this horse for a ton of money? Then maybe you should spend a little couple $100 and get professional headshots, professional shots of him standing, and then get really nice shots of him under saddle that show a good uphill frame and the legs are in the right place and the rider is sitting nicely, the mouth is quiet, the ears are perked. Again, it's all about first impression. If you have a picture where the horse's neck is all twisted or it's tucked to its chest or it's all blurry and you can't really see the horse, then it's not going to catch the buyer's eye as easily as those nice professional shots.
Okay. All right. So, I mean, I like the analogy of, being on a dating app and presenting your horse well. So I've got to, maybe ask a touchy subject, but what should be the cost? Like if somebody's looking to get a professional to market their horse and, to, kind of use their connections, what's the charge?
It depends. As in Wellington, it's going to be a lot different than where I used to live, which is Seattle, or, California was more of our quote Wellington and the West Coast. I think a lot of that depends on where you're living. But when you're in these hubs where, obviously Wellington is a hub for looking at dressage horses, prospects, schoolmasters, Grand Prix horses. But I think the cost would be, you're going to have to put the horse in training, would be my guess. Yep. You're going to have to do the pre-vetting, which is expensive. Depending again on where you're at in the country, the pre-vetting, a full set of films, it varies, on each vet, but you're not spending any less than $2,000 doing films. It's worth it though. In the end, I can tell you, I've had horses in my barn that I have had pretty large price tags on and the owner did not want to do the pre-vetting. And it was heartbreaking when the horse, it was one in particular, it was 3 days. It was a niche horse. It was smaller. It did everything through the I2 and it was a good age. And they vetted it, and it went from almost a 6-digit horse to like $25,000 on the vettings. And they had already spent, the time and the training, and it just would have been good to know before they spent all that money, right? So first and foremost, before you go to a professional, if you seek advice from a professional, they should tell you to do a pre-vetting. Even if you're selling a horse for $25,000 or $20,000, which in our market, it is a lot of money in general, but for our market, it's the lower end for a starter horse in dressage. And I would do it because you would be spending, let's say, sometimes 3 months of training, waiting for that horse to sell. And then you get to the end of it and you're like, gosh, my horse is not worth more than 10 because of the findings on these films. I've seen that so many times in the industry. So first and foremost, that would be the first thing I would do is the vetting. Second of all, you need to find a trainer that is known for not only selling horses, but moving them. So some people will are really good dressage trainers, fantastic hands, produce great horses. They're just not really good at sales. And a lot of my colleagues, Julie and I have a lot of colleague friends that are like, hey, will you do this for me? I'm a trainer. I don't have time for sales. And so that's another thing to look into. I don't want anybody to be misled in a professional being a dressage trainer, but they're just not good at sales. So look at their sales list on their website. Are they turning horses over? Ask them, how long does it take you to turn a horse over? Is it 60 days? Is it 30 days? Is it 90 days? Because I do a lot of that. I'm like, if you want to price your horse this, because everybody thinks their horse is worth $1 million, we can price your horse here. But it's going to take me a long time to sell it, even with this good vetting. So I'm very honest. I'm like, look, with this price, you're going to be here a while. Or I'm honest and say, I'm not personally going to be able to get this price for your horse. I like to sell horses personally as a trainer, and I don't want them longer than 60 days because honestly, you're going to see that horse being marketed and you'll be like, why is it still there? Why is it still there? They should be moving within 45 days. In my opinion, every horse I've ever had and I have sold successfully has never been longer than 60 days, unless I had it in training prior to the marketing.
Okay. Yep. All right. So if you're going to hire somebody, make sure they're good at what they do. I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And if I can add a little bit to what Lindsey said, we're not trying to sound like you should hire us to do this, but sometimes people don't necessarily realize the amount of work that goes into selling these horses. I mean, we're talking about doing the videos, we're talking about taking these pictures, and the horses need to be kept in work this whole entire time. But then marketing these animals and responding to the hundreds of people that will comment, that will contact you, that will ask you a million questions. And then you'll have people that will come and try the horse. And then this person works, this person doesn't, this, that. I mean, it's time consuming. If you're a person that is not used, if you're a person that is not used to doing this, it is going to be very overwhelming. And then there's also, closing the sales. Do you have a sales contract? Do you know how to be there for vetting? Do you know how to take care of everything that goes between A and Z? Because there's a lot of steps between saying, I'm going to sell my horse and having it sold and having the money in your account and the horse is on a truck and it's gone.
Right.
Yeah. It's important that there's social media. It's kind of a full-time job. I mean, on top of, in a lot of these amateurs, at least all my clients are working. So they are wanting someone to take that off their plate for, and that's another thing. I don't know if that even comes into this and the cost, but you go in the percentage of what they're going to take on top of the sales. So you're going to be in board and training, you have your vetting, and then the third thing is going to be the commission to these trainers that are basically taking time out of their day to schedule. I mean, because a lot of these times you're dealing with people at less than fantastic timing. They come in, they fly in, they vetted a horse and maybe didn't work out. And hey, can we look at your horse at 5? And you're just scrambling to get the horse out to show them. And that happens a lot.
Yeah.
But those are the,
and you're answering messages until 10 p.m. at night too, because people will contact you at any time of the day.
Yeah, they're
Yes, they will.
they're at home browsing the sales
They're
pages,
excited.
and
Yeah.
they think you should be available to them
24/7.
whenever. And then
We're open 24/7.
Open
Yeah.
24/7.
and say they're going to come, and then you're waiting. You rearrange your day, and they don't show up. And that's
Yeah, that happens too. Isn't that lovely?
that's my
That's a
favorite.
whole other
lot of
podcast.
that.
Yeah,
Do not do if you're a buyer.
We're going to do that. We're going to do a do not do as a buyer, girls. We're going to come back on and do that because that's really important. But I wanted to go back to sort of the commission and talking about that real quick, because that's very important, because it is a lot of time and effort on everybody's part. But the sales agents, right? If you hire an agent, number one, you just need to be upfront about what it's going to cost. So you may actually need to talk about that and add that to the price of the horse, right? You need to be very upfront with, just like anything else, what do you charge and how much and what services are you going to provide? And I think that's also important to make sure that is very clearly discussed. So there's no hurt feelings or there's nobody getting upset. If you know exactly what somebody's going to do, then that's easy to track. And you can say, okay, I want to see the ads, or there's going to be an ad going up every 3 days or whatever it is. And then, 100% people need to be paid for their time. And that just needs to be discussed up front. So if it is your first time selling your horse, all these things, just talk to the person that you're working with and have it laid out, because then you can understand what you're doing. And so I think that's super important.
If I can add to that a little bit, I think that goes in hand with what Lindsey was saying about doing your due diligence about who you're hiring. Because, unfortunately, there are some people that are out there that will tell you that, I can do this and I can do that. And then, the horse goes or whatever. And then you hear crickets for months on end. So it is very important to do your due diligence, do your research, look up who you're planning on hiring to take on the sale. And you need to feel like there's some sort of trust that's built between that person and you.
Yes.
And I would be upfront too. Like, I would like this horse. I always tell my clients or ask them, I should say, how long do you want this horse in the market? Like, how long do you want him here or her?
Yeah.
And they tell me, and I have to say, from a trainer's perspective, a lot of people are like, well, I put $40,000 of training or $20,000 into training on this horse. I have to say, as a trainer to someone, if they've had $20,000, let's say they paid $25,000 for this horse, and they put $30,000 into the training, and they bring me this horse and they're expecting to at least get 50 for it. Then I see the x-rays and there's just so many things wrong in the films. I have to say, just because you put a lot of money into training, sometimes it does not come out at the end for the horse to be worth more, depending on the age of the horse's soundness. It's hard because again, I always compare it to a little bit like a car. You have two cars with the same amount of mileage. Did the one person change the oil, get the tires rotated? Did they go in and get it serviced? And then you have the other person the same amount of miles, but they have never done any of the services. The oil is always changed late. They've smoked in it. I mean, there's different types of, I guess, horses at the same level. And I always tell my clients that, hey, if you put $20,000 in the training and the horse you feel sometimes is not worth more, whether they hit a physical limitation or that they are just not the horse for that client, whether it be temperament or the way they feel for the rider, it's something I really want to kind of just be, I guess, loud about, because I feel like sometimes people feel entitled to the fact that they've put all this money into this horse and maybe they won't get that back. And I'm just always honest as a trainer about those things, the timeline of which I think they can sell. Obviously, like Reese just said, I'm honest about my commission. And then I'm honest about what I think I can sell that horse for with all the findings in front of me and me sitting on the horse and kind of evaluating it.
Yeah. And I think also, if I can just add to that, I think as owners, if you're going to hire an agent, don't hide anything from them. That is that is a complete don't for me. I've had that done to me and it's not fun.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't work for anybody, right? Yeah, surprise.
Yeah,
Like,
I
it
mean,
doesn't
you're
work for
forming a
anybody.
bit of a partnership on the sales end of the horse, and we all understand that horses are unique and all of that, but yeah, you don't want any surprises in
No,
any
and
of it.
as an agent, it's my job. At least for me, I always try to really find the most suitable home for animal that you're bringing to me. Like, that's part of my job. Yes, it's to get you money, but I also don't want to send this horse somewhere that's not going to work out, and then we're going to have issues afterwards. Like, it's a combined jointure in the way that, like, yes, I want to get you paid, but yes, I want a good outcome for this horse. And it's not always easy.
It's your
without all
reputation
those
on the
details.
line. Yeah, exactly.
Also,
Correct. Yeah.
No,
I mean,
so
it
true.
could be minor details. It could be a minor detail to you, but at the end of the day, it can be a deal breaker for somebody else. So
Right.
these things need to be told up front, person that you're hiring.
Yeah, it's very true. It's very true. Well, ladies, this has been so fun and so educational. If you don't mind, Lindsey, tell us how we can find you online. And then Julie, how can we find you online so we can get your guys' contact information out if anybody has any more questions to ask you guys?
Well, I'm on Facebook, on Instagram. It's Lindsey O'Keefe. And on Instagram, it's the same way. It's Lindsey O'Keefe Dressage.
Fantastic. And Julie, how can we find you?
And same thing for me. I'm on Facebook and Instagram. Life keeps me pretty busy, so I'm not super active. But if someone sends me a DM, I will answer.
Awesome.
Julie Channell is my name on Facebook, and then Dressage Channel with my last name on Instagram is how you can find me there.
Fantastic. Well, ladies, thank you so much.
Thank
No
you for
problem.
having
It
us.
was a pleasure. Yeah.
If you have 1 or 2 horses, or you have 20, 30 or more, fly predators will make the difference between heavy infested fly problem or a no-fly zone. Balding Lab fly predators, catching these flies before they become an issue.
Well, tonight for our Adult Amateur Spotlight, I am so excited to have one of my students and friends, Camilla Jamieson, on the line. Camilla, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, I am thrilled to have you because we met last year, kind of last summer. It was kind of warm, and you have the most wonderful horse. So I want you to tell everybody about a little bit about yourself and a little about Artie, and then we're going to talk about your journey together.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah, so I'm Camilla. I'm an equine veterinarian. I'm an internist by trade, and I am currently a associate professor of large animal emergency medicine at Purdue, but it has been quite a journey to get here. So I was working overseas in Qatar for 4 years at a big equine hospital over there. And as my sort of coming home present to myself, I had been riding a lot for a bunch of different people, just kind of picking up rides here and there for the 4 years that I was over there, doing some low level, medium level dressage. But did not have a horse of my own, was picking up a bunch of different rides on a bunch of different people's horses, and decided kind of as my treat to myself coming home through actually looking for horses with another client and another trainer who I used to work with when I worked back here in the States. I happened across this horse who was a Grand Prix schoolmaster gelding who had some medical issues, has a history with ulcers, has a history with equine asthma, and was not outside of my price range, and ended up kind of taking the leap and deciding to buy him. And that's how I got Artie. Imported him in end of April 2022. I got home to the States in the middle of May 2022, and we are, what's the date today? 1 week shy of our 1 year anniversary of me meeting him. So,
I love it.
Congratulations. Yeah.
Yeah, you didn't try him, right? You saw videos of him.
No. I saw some videos of him. Yep. Sight unseen.
Where was he located?
He was in Holland, and honestly, I couldn't actually tell you where in Holland he was.
That's okay. It's not a huge place.
No, I was looking at radiographs for horses so my old trainer, who's just a friend, not my trainer anymore, but she was when I was in high school, I was like Skype vetting horses for them. And randomly, just kind of casually was like, the guy who they were looking at horses with was like, "Oh, Camilla, you should think about Artie." I was like, "Oh, no." And like 3 days later, he sent me a bunch of videos of him, and I was like, "Okay, well, he looks great, and he's in my price range." And
so I just wanted to ask you about like being a vet yourself and an internist. Like, how did you feel about just buying him without putting hands on him? You know, like doing even just the basic, eyes, ears, heart kind of check. You know, like.
So I'm very, very lucky. So Jesse, the trainer who I was talking about before, we have another mutual friend who I have met a number of times who is a vet locally in Holland. And so she pre-purchased him for me. So I know her very well, and I know her. We've worked together buying horses for a number of clients, and I've been very, very happy with her level of critique of horses. So she was the one who did the pre-purchase on him. But I still hated it. I really wanted to fly over and vet him myself, but there was no way with moving home and wrapping up one job and that was going to happen. So
I would say, I think where Philip is going with this, and I'm just gonna pick it up real quick at the football, and that is not the best idea to buy a horse off of video. But I've done it. Phil, I don't know if you've done it. I did it. The last horse I purchased.
Yeah, I would never do it. I have to look a horse in the eye, or just kind of, put hands on them at least. Yeah, that's
right. So I bought a horse kind of like Camilla during COVID. My really good friend Zitska, she was my roommate at Mr. Schumacher's. I couldn't go. It was we had the money, we had the funds, we found the video. It was the first time. I normally would have flown over, but it wasn't an option. So she went and tried him for me. So I guess where I'm going with this is, if you have again, if you have a trusted friend, that's always good if you can't go. And I bought a 3-year-old, so I really wanted her to tell me about his disposition. That was her main goal. So I felt really comfortable doing that. But I think if you are going to do it by video, you really, really, really need to have somebody put hands on it that you really trust. Yeah. So sorry, but Artie came.
No, I would completely agree with that. And I guess the only other thing I would say is I had a little bit of a backup in my mind of I know he has a very solid show record and he has a lot of talent. And I was like, well, if this horse absolutely doesn't work out for me, I can probably sell him again because I know he has clean x-rays and I know he vetted well.
Right. And he was a Grand Prix horse. He had shown, I think, I think that the idea was okay. So I think if you're going to do it,
but I wouldn't recommend anyone else do it. It was the stupidest thing I've ever done.
But that leads into
Thank you for that. Yeah. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah. That leads into.
No, I shouldn't say the stupidest. It is the riskiest thing I've ever done. It was,
And it's been a challenge.
No, I would not recommend it to anyone.
Right. And that's where we're going to go with this, right? Because this has not been, we're going to tell you the story is going to turn out great. But it's been a very challenging year, hasn't it? It's not been easy for you.
Oh, yeah. It has been humbling on so many different levels. So, yeah. No, it was not that I ever expected it to be easy, but it was so much harder than I ever anticipated.
Well, yeah, I think that's kind of horses in general, and then on top of that, dressage for sure, and kind of trying to make a partnership work, and there's so many levels of potential complications that I don't think anyone would ever say that the sport is easy or dealing with a horse is challenge free.
Oh no, yeah. And then you add the sort of, I know Reese and I have joked about the arranged marriage aspect of it. I was like, well, we're in this. I bought this horse.
Yeah. Now you're responsible for making it work.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about making it work, because you got him at kind of at the end of May. I think I met you at the end of July.
So I think it was the end of July.
You had a little bit of time to get to know him, and then you came to us, right?
Yes. So I had him June, July. 8 weeks when we came to you. He'd been in the country probably 10 or 11 weeks because he actually got here a little bit before I got home. But it was probably almost 8 weeks to the day.
Yeah. And you had been traveling a lot. Like it had been a challenge, right, through that period of time.
Yeah, things had not been like super smooth. I mean, things were not smooth with this horse from get-go. He was in quarantine in New York, and he was supposed to get picked up by the hauler and be taken to Kentucky, and they did not release him from quarantine in time, and he missed his bus. And so so Jessie, who also was importing another horse for herself, like they'd flown over together, she like called me. It was like the middle of the night, guitar time. She's like, I have your horse on my trailer. Like, I don't know what you want to do, but they kicked him out of quarantine and I'm taking him back to my farm. So he went to Vermont for 3 weeks, and then I took him to Kentucky with me when I moved to Kentucky.
Right.
So,
right. And you were changing and changing jobs. And I mean, there was a lot going on for you in your life, but we got him here to our farm, and we can kind of pick the story up from there, right? With, you know, we were all.
And he had traveled hard.
Yep.
And it had been a rough adjustment on him, just like physically, mentally, the whole thing. And then he and I didn't know each other.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, you can speak to that as well. Like, we did not.
Right. And that's where it kind of came in, where it was good to bring him here. And I think once he kind of got here and he got the routine of like kind of being back in a dressage barn, he had not gone to a dressage barn. He'd gone kind of to a boarding facility. And I think when he got here, he kind of knew, he plugged in with all the other divas we have here, dressage divas.
Yeah.
And the schedule. I mean, the schedule
was like, home finally.
Yeah. He understood, he understood the schedule was a similar schedule that he was used to. And we for a while, I think I rode him for the first couple weeks, just to kind of get him fit, get him he was a little bit befuddled as well. Like he needed a little bit of just confidence again. Like, okay, you know what you're doing. Mm-hmm. And then that's when we started kind of combining forces a little bit. And you were traveling a lot too. You had a lot going on in your life. Yeah. So it kind of worked out. You kind of basically said, take him for a month, ride him and get him organized, which we did. And we had to find bits. Mm-hmm. We had to find saddles. We had the whole package to find, which I would say, if you do buy a horse in Holland, try to get as much tack as you can over there that, fits. And, and it was also
and
kind
the
of
horse is used to, you've got to keep, I mean, you got to do a good job of not changing too much, because their whole life changes when they with the flight and blah blah blah. So you want to keep as much as possible, being the same. And
we had a great friend here. Like he had a really good turnout buddy. The two older geldings, they like loved each other. So turnout went really well because they really enjoyed being out together. So we were able to, he didn't have a friend before, and that made him nervous. And, we had some management stuff we had to figure out. We had to work on some ulcers. We had some ulcers going on.
That's always an ongoing thing. We're scoping him again tomorrow. So
Yeah. I mean, it's just a little bit him. He's a really kind guy, but he's that kind of very chill personality that I don't know. It's my theory. I see ulcers.
He's very like internally stressed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty classic. Yeah. So.
Mm-hmm. And so then let's start talking about riding, because riding for a while was humbling. I mean, you are a very, very accomplished human being. You're such a cool person. You've lived all over the world. You travel all over the world. You were, lived in Qatar, and were, you're a huge veterinarian. You know what I mean? Not physically. Sorry. You know what I mean? But you're very well-respected veterinarian throughout the world. Yeah. And it was very humbling, wasn't it? In the beginning.
Oh yeah, it was. And I mean, I would have never said I was a particularly great rider. And I knew that I had bought a horse with far more skills and talent than I possessed. But
I mean, that was kind of the point. Yeah, that was kind of the point. That, he's kind of getting up in there, done that kind of type that's going to help you learn. But I know it's more like starting from scratch when even if you have an educated horse, you have to, learn their balance and learn how to keep your own balance. And that's so much more challenging. You can always feel like, oh, I have no idea how to ride all over again,
And frustrating.
Absolutely.
And
it was
right?
like, and, that I have learned so much about biomechanics and my body and horses' bodies and how they work together and how to build on those things. Like there was so much that I didn't even know that I didn't know,
Right.
which is always one of the, if you know you don't know it, you know how to fix it. But if you don't even know that you don't know it, and that's
Yes.
where, when we came to you, Reese, that's where I was like, I can't even I remember I was like, I can't make this horse trot. Like our first lesson,
Right.
I was like, I cannot make my Grand Prix horse trot.
He would just
I
passage.
can walk him on the buckle. I was like, I can walk him on the buckle or we can passage and that's it. So there's two things.
Right. And then canter, we did a lot of canter pirouettes. I was like, oh, whoa.
And a lot of accidental canter pirouettes. Yes.
Yeah. Whoa. Okay. So, part of it too was we really had to work on our fitness. And, thankfully here at the barn, we all worked on fitness together. I mean, it was like it's a constant effort, but we did, in September, we did 30 sit-ups for 30 days. We did 30 for 30. Where we all were like, how are you doing with your sit-ups? Like we all kind of embraced it. And then you really embraced fitness and yoga. You did a ton of yoga, didn't you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Every day. And that has been such a big thing for me. I mean, I've always, worked out, gone for a jog here and there, but just being absolutely consistent and absolutely as strict with myself as I would be about riding or, his regimes is I have to keep up and uphold my side of the deal, and a huge amount of it was hip mobility and lower back mobility and flexibility, as well as just baseline cardio fitness for sure.
Right. Yeah. I know it was
but that flexibility component was I think that was one of the hugest breakthroughs, was really realizing how tight and how unaware I was of a certain kind of blockage. I don't know what you want to you call it, but yeah.
Well, and where, because of not being aware, and again, you're a fit person, so I'm throwing that out there. But you would move parts of your body that you didn't know you were moving, but he knew. Right. He was like, oh, I need to do this and I need to do that. And, that was where a lot of the complications, because, I kept saying, it's like, okay, you are literally driving a Ferrari, you have got to sit still and you've got to know what all your pieces are doing. So you're not hitting gears that you don't even understand that you're hitting. And that took a while to really embrace that. Because at first you're like, no, I'm not. I was like, oh yeah, you are. He just did a flying change as you made a turn because you shifted your seat. And as soon as you shift your seat, he's going to feel that and he's going to do the flying change. So I think that was really something that was part of the frustrating part. But once you really studied biomechanics and you really worked on your yoga and your body, that was when a huge shift came.
Yeah.
And the other thing which was hard for me and for you in some ways and great in other ways, is you got a wonderful offer at Purdue. So you had to move. We finally got you settled. You were happy. We were happy. We had a routine. Had the barn. We have an amazing barn family. So everything was rocking and rolling.
I know. It was perfect.
And then it was kind of perfect. And then you had to move. And so that kind of created a whole different challenge for us, didn't it? As we were doing that. Yeah. Yeah. So tell everybody about that. I mean, you were able to find the barn, we were able to kind of get that all organized, but then we kind of had to, I was also leaving for Florida. So, we
had this big change on everybody's parts. I came up here and you went to Florida and we had to adjust to the whole independence of that, of and going to Pivo lessons which are amazing. And I don't know genuinely don't know where I'd be without that, but
exactly. We were able to stay together because we talked about that, right? We talked about, okay, we want to stay training together. But that is that's the hard part with the Pivo lessons, right? Because I'm not hands-on. So we went from 4 days a week hands-on. And then here at the farm, if you rode 6, I'm still watching at all times.
Exactly. And having the safety blanket, the safety net of, if I wasn't getting something or it wasn't going quite right or it wasn't clicking, being able to be like, either asking you to show me or you being like, hey, he's getting confused. Like, let me jump on him, or like, let's change, and we had Jet as well. We had a great working student at that point who also could jump on him. And, there were so many options for how to get through things. And then all of a sudden there was no other option.
Yeah. It was,
I could have you in my ear, but it was
right.
It was me. We had to figure it out.
So let's pick the story up there, because you did a great job. I mean, that was hard. I mean, we pivoted sometimes 3 times a week. I mean, in the beginning we pivoted a lot.
The first couple of weeks, I think we pivoted. Yeah. Like, because we left in the middle of the month. So we just were like, okay, you were amazing about that. You were like, here, why don't you just have the rest of your board as like, your training package. And I think you were in my, I think we did 4 days a week for the first month.
Yeah, and we did a lot. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We had to figure Pivo out, which was, you kind of have to have a sense of humor. Yeah.
It doesn't always want to participate, but most of the time.
Yeah.
And it was just, that was, I think honestly, there is a way that has been one of the most empowering things for me, and something that I've really seen a shift in my relationship with Artie. But also that honestly coming here and having to work through all of his or our glitches together and work out how to be independent and be like, there's no one coming to save you. It was that aspect of it that was so scary and so hard. And I'm not going to lie, there were days where, there were days when we were first here where I was in tears. There were days where I was like, I couldn't even get him to come down to me on the lunge. And I was like, I'm not even getting on this horse because it's going to end in tears.
Yep. Yep. And we had that protocol, right? We talked about that. We're like, okay, let's start with this. We started with lunging the side reins because we felt like that really helped him. I mean, we kind of had a pretty good plan on, okay, if this happens, try this. We did do a lot of lunging, which because he tends to want to be a little bit stiff on his top line, and that seemed to really help him. And like you said, once he got loose, then you were more successful with riding him. Yeah. That wouldn't necessarily have been how we did it if you had been here, but that was what we decided for your journey was what we were going to do. But again, it empowered you to know when to get on him, when to not, what you needed to work on when you got on him, right? That was also really good.
Yeah. And the other thing that I started doing this when I was there, and just talking about the fitness and holding up my side of the bargain is I know riding is a sport. I know dressage is a sport, but there is a way in which I would not necessarily always, warm up and drink enough water and do all of those things, especially because we would usually train in the morning and I was often working nights. So I would just come straight from work, and it would just be that much more rushed. And that's another thing that's made a huge difference is I hold myself so accountable to that. If I don't have time to warm myself up and to warm him up properly, I either don't ride that day, or we just honestly, sometimes I just bareback hack him on the buckle and we just walk around outside just to stretch his legs. I do not even attempt to school him unless I have enough time and enough, I've held up my side of the bargain and to warm myself up and to stretch and to show up right for him and to warm him up and then to have a good schooling session. And that's made a huge difference is it means I don't ride if I don't have 2 hours at the barn. But right now, that's where I'm at with him. And maybe, given his age and my body and who we are, that may always be who,
Yeah,
and maybe one day we'll get to a point.
Make a plan that's going to work, and then you have to be strict about staying on it because
exactly.
To stay on a good way is the most important thing. And I think if you deviate from a successful plan, then you only have yourself to blame.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's a good thing to realize. And a good tip for everyone is to say, if I had a good session, I have to identify how does that happen and how do I continue to do that and how do I build on these things?
Yeah. And that's exactly, when we started doing, Reese was so good about that. We started doing exactly that before we moved barns. And that's how we came up with a plan. It was like, okay, these are the things that set us up for a really good day. And these are the patterns that happen when we maybe don't have a good day. So we're going to make sure we don't do those and make sure, it's only fair to him to hold myself really accountable to set us up for the best day we can have.
No, for sure. So tell us, what are you guys working on now? What are the goals? Now you've had him a year, and I think I tell people it takes a year to get to know a horse. And I think maybe even more with a schooled horse, because those horses are coming in, they've already had a career. He had a whole life in Holland. He lived at the same barn his whole life with the same rider. And the rider was a man as well. No offense, Phil. But that, he went from a very tall Dutch man to, you're not a normal size
I'm not
lady.
itty bitty by any means, but I'm not a 6'4", 240-pound Dutch man.
No, exactly.
Who is, right? Who is?
Yeah, exactly. Right? Exactly. So, kind of what are you guys working on? Because now we're starting to get into some good stuff, aren't we?
I know. We're finally getting to the really fun part. So we're going to our first show next weekend.
Yeah.
We're going to just go and explore the adventures of showing together.
And we're going to non-compete, right? We're just going to the horse show, right? Is that, I can't remember.
I think I'm going to ride a test, but it is a 4-H charity show. So I would say effectively it is non-compete, but I'm going to ride a test in front of a judge. But
exactly.
There's only that, or ride around in the warm-up arena. Or I was offered the option of you can join the speed class and run barrels in your dressage saddle. And I was like, well, I won't be doing that. But thanks for the offer.
But you're not going to a recognized show for the first one. No, you're going to a local schooling show for fun.
Charity show. Exactly.
Yep. Right. With just let's see how it goes. And then we'll unpack how it goes. We'll go back through, which is awesome. And then we'll see how it goes. But it's like, okay, we want to start showing. He's 18 this year. So it's like, all right, what are we waiting for?
We don't have forever. So exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what else are we working on?
We're starting to really work on some lateral work. We're starting to really work on, developing gaits, and not just, I feel like we're actually starting to finally work on riding and actually work on the core of dressage, instead of just like, how do you get out of your own way so that the horse
can do what is being asked. Yeah,
exactly. We weren't working on connection and suppleness and, and
we were working on walk, truck, canter, staying on. Yeah.
Basic. But we were working on not falling
confusing
off.
Him, like staying out of his way and not confusing him and trying to be balanced while he's moving. Those are huge things. That's the basis.
Yeah. I would say we spent 6 months just me learning to stay out of his way.
Yeah.
Genuinely. And we're not always there.
No, and we even taught you to piaffe. We're like, okay, which is not necessarily something I would do all the time. But I'm like, okay, these are the aids for piaffe. And when he does that, this is what you're going to do. And when he does it and make sure you're not doing that.
Make sure you're not. Exactly.
It was happening. So, there has to be some fun and some sense of humor on it.
Yeah.
But it was really, it was a cool journey to watch you do this. And it's so fun to see you now, because it's like, okay, now it's actually really fun. And, no offense, I'm really aware and having a good time also during your lessons in the beginning.
Nice.
I would get a cup of coffee. No, I love you. You know it. No, for sure. Well, we are so proud of you guys. It's been such a fun journey. And I think a lot of people will resonate with your journey and are probably nodding their heads or laughing in their cars as they're listening to this. And
I hope so.
But we're going to keep following you on this journey, because I'm highly invested in you guys, and I love you guys and I love the story. And it's so fun to see how successful you have been and how much work you've put in on and in and out of the tack. So we're so proud of you guys. We're going to keep an eye on you guys. And thank you for being our Adult Amateur Spotlight. We appreciate it.
Thanks. Yeah. And I guess the only other thing I would say is just like finding a trainer like you who just endlessly believes it. You just, the number of times you had to be like, no, you can do this. Like, don't sell him. Just stick with it. Like, it will come. It's really
I think I said, if you're
but it will.
Tell me what tree you're going to tie him to and what time.
Exactly.
I'll be there at 12:01.
I'll be there 1 minute after. I will pick him up. No, but
I'll take him.
exactly. But just having somebody who has that faith, and like, you know, there was a bunch of times where driving home, I'd be like, she sees something. I'm like, she'd tell me to sell the horse if that was like the really right option.
Yeah, no,
Like,
and I think that's true.
you know?
You do have to have the right connection with your trainer. I think that's
Yeah.
really important, you know, and I think you and I had that from the very beginning. Like the first day when I met you, I was like, she is super cool. This is a really cool horse.
Yeah,
I know we can make
equally.
this work. We're just going to have to figure out the plug and chug method. And sometimes it is a little faith in your trainer. And sometimes it's a little bit of, you know, and there were days where I'm like, I'm really trying to figure out the puzzle right now. So, and you were great. You, I was like, okay, let's try this. Let's try this bit. Let's try this arrangement of riding. And there was a lot of that we had to do. And I think that I was thrilled to be a part of the team and continue to be part of the team. I mean, that's the beauty of Pivo lessons, and that we've been able to stay in touch. And, you know, where you are, it's not a wealth of trainers. So
No,
you know, that
absolutely
wasn't, and we had a good thing going. So it was cool that we were able to use the
Exactly.
technology.
And I would have hated having to change trainers at that point. And I think it would have been really detrimental for, you know, the journey where we were at. Like, we were just starting to really put the pieces together. And I think if we changed the whole program, everything probably would have gone back to square one. So no, I
think it would have been tough.
Thank you, whoever invented Pivo.
Yeah, thank you, Pivo, and or any other ones that you use. So we're very thankful.
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much for your
Pivo.
time. Yeah, exactly. We like it, but thank you so much for your time and your story. I mean, it's been so fun. And like I said, we're gonna keep in touch with you, girl.
Yay! Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. It was super fun.
As horse owners, we spend a lot of time on the road. Let US Rider help keep you covered. Our equestrian motor plan offers fast, reliable, nationwide service from our highly trained roadside assistance team. 24/7 coverage for both you and your horse. Membership includes horse trailer servicing, towing, flat tire repair, even on dual wheels, battery assistance, and lockout service on any vehicle in your plan. We also have your equine companions covered with referrals for emergency vet services, farrier referrals, and emergency stabling assistance. Get peace of mind on the road for you and your horse. Join US Rider today.
Well, for this week's trainer tip, we have international rider and trainer Patty Mayer on the line. Patty, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. So, trainer tips. So you're asking about trainer tips, and I'm going to steal someone's trainer tip because I always steal everything, right? And it comes from the World Cup and watching the jumpers school. And this one jumper rider had a horse who balked at the in gate, or essentially wouldn't go towards the first fence, which was away from the in gate. And this was in schooling. And he did something that was so smart and such good horsemanship. And I need to remind myself to do this, which is he changed direction. Instead of trying to force the horse to go where the horse was like, yeah, hard no. He was like, fine, you don't want to go right, we're going to go left. Mm-hmm. And he got a nice confident, he did a nice confident thing to the left or to the other direction, jumped his first fence towards the exit instead of away from the exit.
Yeah.
And the horse was fine. Fine. And I just thought that is so smart, because I tend to, I'll get obsessed with, you didn't do this thing I wanted you to do in the place I wanted you to do it. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes the place is the wrong place, and you can come back to that place later.
And the time is the wrong time, and it's not. Yeah, he decided not to fight the fight and just to do something else, and maybe it wasn't the horse's fault. Maybe the horse couldn't see.
Got spooked to that.
It's a dark venue and whatever. It's just he didn't go in, set up correctly. So This makes me think of our books about horse anatomy and physiology, and we had a book called Horse Brain, Human Brain, and they're not really great at being in indoor venues, which the World Cup is at, and they're not great at seeing inside when there's not enough light. So don't blame the horse. Do something else, gain some confidence, and then boom, the problem's done, right?
Yeah.
And so you don't have
exactly. He just
yeah.
I think you're right. It was so smart, and it was thinking like a horse. And I just think that's great. And you're totally right about changes in light. Horses' eyes don't adjust as fast as ours do from light to dark. And I think the other way as well. So you need to give them a moment. And and for whatever reason, this guy just was fabulous. And so it's somebody else's training, but I'm going to take it and tell you that I think it was just such good horsemanship.
Well, I'm just going to add, because I had an interesting thing happen today here at the farm. And part of it was we had a huge weather change. It went from 85 to 40 today. From yesterday to today, we had a big storm. So it's really cold, right? So the Florida horses, their backs are just like, they're so tight. So this was not a Florida horse. This is a horse that had been here for the winter in Kentucky, but the owner was late for her lesson. She was obviously, she was running behind. She was just like, I got to get on the horse. I got to get it, and I look out and I see her trying to get on this horse, and this horse is absolutely dancing. And my apartment is right by, I could see my ring. So I jump, go outside. I was making a cup of tea, and I went out and I said, whoa, time out. Like, we need to think about what's going to be successful for us today, which is put that horse on a lunge line for 5 minutes. I know you're late for your lesson, slightly annoying to me, but I'm also all about safety and I'm all about success. And it was the same thing. Like, this horse just needed a second I know the horse quite well. It's actually lived here at my farm for several years. Like, I know the horse really well. I could see what was going on. But even that, like, take a second to take a deep breath and just warm the horse on the lunge line or walk the horse or whatever needs to be done. Because it wasn't in that rider's brain that way. It was in that rider's brain of, I'm late, I got to get on, I got to and it was not going to be successful. And so I think that's super important to remember.
And I think I totally agree with you. And interestingly, as somebody who, practiced law for years and had to ride before work or after work and was always in a rush, that is not a good way to ride. And it's almost impossible when you have a job, a career, a family, to always be able to come in, take a deep breath, focus on yourself and your horse in a positive way. And it's super important to do. And I agree with you, for safety reasons, for schooling reasons, for fairness reasons. So there you go.
Right. So a great tip. I think that's just thinking as a horse, taking time, remembering what horses are good and bad at. I think it's really important, and riding and riding your horse, not necessarily, that guy was at the World Cup. He had 90 seconds to get around the ring, but he knew what to do with his horse. He knew his horse, and hopefully he's successful this week. We'll have to take a look at that. Well, Patty, thank you so much for your time. And how can our listeners find you online?
Well, they can email me if people are old-fashioned enough to email at bailiwickhouse@gmail.com. B for boy, AILIWICKHOUSE @gmail.com. They can look me up on Facebook. I have both I've got a Patty Mare dressage page and a Patty Mare page. And how else? Oh, and they can text 310-729-3365. There you go.
Fantastic, Patty. Thanks so much.
You're welcome. Talk to you soon.
Well, Phil, you met some listeners at the clinic, right? We wanted to give some shout outs to them.
They were all awesome. But one particular person actually bought me lunch, and that was amazing. So I wanted to thank her for that. And everyone who is listening to this episode, it's inspiring to, whenever we meet you and whenever, they show appreciation, whether it's through an email or over Facebook. That's just, it makes it all worthwhile, because it's not easy to come up with guests every week, but knowing that there's someone out there that appreciates it and
buys you lunch. I mean, anybody that buys
The
Phil
lunch
lunch,
was amazing.
everyone snacks, lunch, any food, Phil will love you forever. He's not complicated. It's awesome. Just give him some food.
Typical guy is that, the way to my heart is through my stomach. So
that was very sweet. No, we love it. We love our community. It just really makes us smile. So truly, we love the emails and Facebook shout outs, and never feel bad about coming up and seeing us. We love it. Everyone's always so nice and respectful when they do. And I always love it. It makes me smile. And like Phil says, sometimes we're staring at a computer screen. So it's always nice to actually talk to our listeners. And don't forget, our book club of the month is going on. Eric Smiley's The Sport Horse Problem Solver: What Worked, What Doesn't, and How to Make It Better. Because I've been under the weather. I've been reading some of it, and it's great. So we hope you really, really enjoy that. And as always, you can find our show notes and links to today's guests on our page at horseradionetwork.com. Search Dressage Radio Show. Like us on Facebook, just search Dressage Radio Show. Follow us on Twitter at Horse Radio. My website is maplecrestfarmky.com, and my email is reese@horseradionetwork.com.
I think the best way to find me is through Facebook, or my email is philip@horseradionetwork.com. I'd like to thank our sponsors this week for allowing us to put on a good show. That's Kentucky Performance Products. And if you'd like to support our show and the Horse Radio Network, you can do that through the auditor program found at horseradionetwork.com.
Everybody, keep your heels down and your shoulders back, and we can't wait to talk to you next week.